these one-score losses that we had this year, they were one-score games for the vast majority of the games. So, like, they actually felt like we had a shot.
45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He's gonna go. Holy cow.
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. He gets better and better. He can't be me. Oh, man, woman, and child, he just turned this stadium inside out.
Tony White is sticking around.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, holy shit. When all of those rumors started floating around for the USC job, I started shitting my pants a little bit.
They weren't even reports, they were rumors because it was just message board bullshit.
But also, he fucking deserves the raise.
Yeah.
Like, give him the money. Give him more money.
Yeah.
Hire him a daily masseuse. Do whatever you need to.
I heard that there was an actual contract available for him to sign.
I heard nothing like that.
Who knows?
That doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just
said rumors.
Yeah.
But
whatever there was.
Yeah, and ultimately, who cares?
He's staying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad he's staying. And I feel like even if it was just rumors and message board stuff, his agent earned his money.
Yeah.
Getting
for
that
sure.
one out there. But, you got a guy who's getting looked at for multiple head coaching jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he decided not to take those. He could have been offered them. Because you can't tell me that San Diego State wanted to hire Sean Lewis over him.
Well, I could.
You
Because
think
he's
so?
an experienced head coach.
Well, I get it.
And he was really good at Kent State.
He was.
And Sean Lewis wants to get the fuck out of Boulder.
Well, like some other people from the sounds of it.
And I also have to imagine a lot of teams are seeing that it was just one season. That's one thing that we kind of forget, is it was just one season.
Yeah.
I'm not forgetting it. He also was, he was successful with Syracuse.
Yeah.
That's why he got this job here.
Yeah.
But you give him another year I don't think you can replicate the same amount of improvement year over year, because we'd be the number one defense in the country if that happened.
Yeah.
But
by
you give him a second year.
You
with
can't
a lot
jump
of these,
100 more spots when you're ranked 14th. Like
you give him another year with these guys and some of the other guys that we've got coming in, and the guys that have, that they pump the brakes on to redshirt them a little bit because we had enough guys. There's going to be some fun stuff go down this next year on defense. But we want to recap the season before we jump into previewing the offseason here. The Iowa game is what it is. We said we didn't really want to do an Iowa breakdown just simply because it was pretty much a culmination of the entire season itself.
I just don't think I could do another breakdown like that. It's just another heartbreaking loss.
Well, and we kind of said it's like, if we're just going to do an Iowa breakdown and then do a separate season recap, it's going to be very hard to not just go into recapping the season when this game was a lot like some of the other games.
Like I said, it was a culmination of the entire
season
by itself.
Yeah.
It was so fitting that it ended on a turnover.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. It was wildly disappointing that it ended the way that it did as far as us not getting the defensive stop.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of talked about that a little bit over this last week of just kind of reflecting on the season as a whole. The defense had several opportunities down the stretch to make stops in crucial moments at the end of games that they didn't.
Yep.
Wisconsin, Iowa, Maryland, all of them happened basically the same way. The defense, it was like, we just needed one more possession out of the defense, and we could have got it done.
Minnesota.
You look at Minnesota, you look at the goal line or the 4th and 1.5 on the 4-yard line in the Wisconsin game where they decided to go for it. Because they're like, no balls, no babies, we got this. And they did. And, I think that's a big difference between what this year's Nebraska team was and the fact that we're still getting over all that scar tissue from the Frost era and the mental weakness, I think.
Yep.
And looking at a Wisconsin team in that moment that, they were kind of using the Nebraska game to remember, hey, we actually aren't that bad. We were a 9-win team not that long ago. We know how to win games.
Yep.
Let's go do it.
I really do think that it was more of a mental thing for them than anything else. They clearly had the ability to make those stops. I mean, you held Maryland to 10 points in the total game.
We have a major goal line stand against Illinois.
Yeah, all of that.
Stuff like that.
They had the ability. It was just they weren't there mentally.
If there was ever
they weren't there when we needed them the most at the end of the game.
You asked this question starting in like week 4. is the defense ever going to give up on the offense? If there's reflecting at over the whole season, if there's ever moments where it feels like the defense gave up on the offense, it was in those moments at the end of the games where it's like, Jesus Christ, guys, you did it again.
I know what you mean, but I struggle using the words "gave up." But
That's fair.
I get your point. I don't think
maybe deflated because of the offense.
Yes, I'm just saying those words together makes it sound.
It sounds intentional.
I also just
I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
I think it's way more that they gave the offense so much throughout all of those games, and the offense just did nothing with it.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at how they happened,
yeah,
they were gash run plays.
Well, hell, the defense literally gave Nebraska the ball with a minute and a half left.
Yeah.
At midfield.
Yeah.
And what'd they do with
Got
it?
the turnover we needed.
Yep.
Nothing. So it's
We
like
got the turnover we needed, and then Iowa got the
I don't
turnover
know
they
what to do
needed.
with this. Let me throw it to an Iowa player. So that's the Iowa recap, guys.
That's it.
We're
That's the
going
whole
right
thing.
into the questions on this because we want to get into recapping the whole season.
Yes. Nebraska rushing touchdowns 1.5. Obviously the under, the 0 on that one. BJ Vegas and myself took the under. The fans were at 50-50, so they couldn't decide. Deacon Hill completion percentage at 60%. Boy, oh boy, did he not come close to that. 39.2%. Everybody took...
Is that his BMI or is that
Jesus,
No,
yeah.
he's fatter than that.
No, that's why it was...
39% body fat?
That's why it was at
Jesus.
60%.
Oh god.
Yeah,
Fuck, we're getting into my range now.
his footprints are still on that field.
Jesus fuck, man.
Everybody took the under on that one. Who will have more rushing yards, LaShawn Williams or Emmett Johnson? That was not close. LaShawn Williams had 111. Emmett Johnson only had 27.
22 of them on that last drive.
Matt, Vegas, and myself took Williams. Iowa total offensive yards 245.5. That was pretty close with the over on 257. Everybody took the under on that one, so everybody got that one wrong. What will be more, Iowa linebacker Jay Higgins tackles or Iowa offensive points? Iowa had more points because Higgins only had 8 tackles. Matt and myself took the points. Nebraska turnovers 1.5. We doubled that with 3. BJ and myself took the over. Nebraska passing yards at 149.5. They had 189. BJ, you were the only one to take the over. Fans also at 50-50 on that one. And the last question was Nebraska rushing yards of 10-plus yards or more. At 3.5, we had 114-yard run by Chubba Purdy at the end of the fourth quarter. So that was a massive under. Myself and the fans took the under on that one. As far as our point total going, before we go into the preseason questions that we had, going into the Iowa game, we were all separated by 1 point with BJU leading by 1. And currently, I had a 6-2 week in the Iowa game, so I took the lead. I have 42 points. BJ, you have 41. Matt, you have 38.
Yeah, it was rough. I was no balls, no babies, and apparently I have neither.
Comes up short. But yeah, no, it's really cool to see Kurt Ferentz let an offensive guard play quarterback. You just don't see that in college football that often, at least not at D1.
Well, you didn't really see it at Iowa either. He was just there.
I mean, he got to stand in though. It was good for him. Good for him. Moving on. What are your guys' initial gut reactions? Put yourself back in August. Think about where you were then to right now. What is your gut reaction? One sentence about this season.
Goddamn the defense and goddamn the offense.
Honestly, kind of what I expected. Different journey to get to the destination, but the destination was still the same.
Sure. I know that we record wise kind of turned out where we all like. I think we were all bottom end of where we expected.
I said 6-6, but then I said if I had to get off of the 500 train, I would have trended closer to 5-7.
You did. I think for me the biggest the one sentence that I would say is Jesus Christ, that hurt. Because it felt like we were building. Our momentum was there. We were building, and then the roller coaster got to the top right after that Illinois and
After
Purdue
October.
Northwestern. Yeah, the October game. That little run, Purdue Northwestern and
5-3 is a pretty good high
and
point.
Illinois. Yeah, and then instead of it being an awesome roller coaster right after that, it was just shit. The track fell apart and we're all dead.
Well, we made the comment going in November. We could see them going 4-0, and we could also see them just as easily going 0-4. Unfortunately, they chose the latter.
We asked the question, can Matt Rhule match Scott Frost's 4-2 record in the back half? And looking at it and the way we had been playing at that moment, we thought for sure. And it was one more disappointment after another that, you've brought it up a couple different times, but you said, these one-score losses felt different this year than they had.
To me, they did.
Explain it more, because a one-score loss is still a one-score loss.
Absolutely. No, I'm not saying it didn't hurt any less.
Yeah.
It just felt different to me because, everybody wants to compare it to the handful of it's more than a handful of one-score losses that we've had in the last handful of years. But to me, those one-score losses, most of them did not, if you just watch the game and you don't look at the score and you have no idea what the score is, they sure as shit didn't feel like a one-score loss.
Yeah.
Because in a good chunk of those, we were down by 2 scores for the majority of the game, and then we score late to make it a one-score game.
Yeah.
To make it look better than what it actually was. I know there was an Illinois game that way, a Minnesota game that way a couple of years ago. Like, these one-score losses that we had this year, they were one-score games for the vast majority of the games. So, they actually felt like we had a shot. Those other ones, it's like, oh, you scored a garbage touchdown that made it look like a one-score game to make yourself feel better so your head coach could stand up there and talk about how close they are.
That was the thing to me. I mean,
that's not how I felt this year.
Well, originally when you asked us that question in a text, I was like, they're all one-score losses. They all hurt, they sting, they all whatever emotionally, but
they sting the same.
When I really thought about it, I'm like, the biggest difference is during the game for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
During the game for me, prior to this year, it was always, oh shit, this is exciting. Is this the turning point for Scott Frost finally? Is this going to happen? Like, we have a chance here. This is crazy. In the fourth quarter, we actually have a chance to come and win this game. Whereas this year, it was like, the entire game, I'm like, yep, nope, we got this in the bag. This is our fucking thing. And then it get to the end, and it's like,
how did we just lose that?
How did this happen?
That's why I say it just felt different. The sting was still the same.
I'm almost more angry this year, though.
Yeah, it's fresher, for starters.
It's fresher, but
we also just came to expect a little more because of how good some of the parts of this team were.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't start 5-3 like that, have a defense that is top tier in the country, and then expect to just lose all of your games, especially the way that we did so close like that for the remainder of the season.
Well, especially how the defense played in October, specifically. And again, this isn't saying the defense played like trash in November.
No, they still played great,
but they didn't play clutch.
For those last drives.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you could have played,
get the stops when the stops count.
Exactly.
I would say my biggest thing is that I think Rhule and his staff did a good job of starting to fix the whole mental illness that's gone on as far as losing mentality, but they haven't gotten all the way there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that crept back in the last half of the season.
You had to get rid of a couple more guys, I think. You had to get rid of some more of that leadership that was hangover leadership from the past.
Honestly, I think if we had won one more game, we'd have won more than just one more game. I think if we win Michigan State,
yes,
we continue to roll. We continue to build that confidence, like you're saying.
It's almost like what Rhule said after the Illinois game. He said, early in the year, we don't win this type of game.
Yeah.
For some reason, that mentality slipped off towards the end of the year, obviously. But that's what Rhule said after the Illinois game.
You started to see a little confidence that was not ready to be backed up yet.
And then they got kicked in the nuts.
Yeah. I think
a couple of times, and they're like, fuck, here we go again.
The loss to a Michigan State team that they expected to beat is really kind of what did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sucked them right back down to that.
Yep.
Especially some of the older
couldn't
guys.
get out of it.
We talked a lot about this, and I think it's kind of crazy that he was the only guy named to an all-conference team. But Reimer, I kind of talked about, after he came back from the injury, he didn't look physically incapable, but he didn't look like the same player. He didn't look like he was playing with as much fire. He didn't look like on the field, he didn't look like he was firing dudes up as much or talking as much. Maybe I was reading too far into stuff, but because he still had some great games after he came back.
Yeah, he played really well. It kind of seems to me like him being specifically the only guy, but also he didn't have the most stellar season that he's ever had.
No, he didn't.
Not just with the injuries, but just in general. And that's not necessarily to blame him because the way we played our defense with so many different guys, that was just the factor.
And
it was.
He had competition at his spot.
It almost felt like because he's a senior and he's done this was like, hey, on your way out the door, here's your award, career achievement award type thing. Like, you deserve this for what you did for your years of service at Nebraska.
Especially when you look at just pure stats, how he got in over Gifford, I have no idea.
I have no idea.
But either way, cool that we got one guy on. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to see that. I don't think Reimer, I don't see him getting a shot in the NFL, do you?
Probably not. I mean, he'll get a camp at least. I mean, he'll get a shot, I guess, if you want to call it that.
He'll go work out. He might.
I don't know that he'll get drafted.
Deal.
Yeah.
Outside of just simply being disappointed and ready to move on, you guys have anything else on this season that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I would ask this question. What is good, bad, and ugly for this season? And you can go off individual players, you can go position groups, you can go off the board, whatever.
I think the good is pretty glaringly obvious. The defense. Tony White specifically, and just the phenomenal way that they played 95% of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you obviously got to exclude the Michigan game.
Yeah.
That's bad. But the rest of the games, they were top tier.
Yep.
Outside of those last few
I would tag on to that and say that a big part of that defensive good is the way that they prove that they can develop guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, on the offensive line, we saw some good development on the offensive line this year. Having a second year with Rhule clearly helped Bryce Benhart.
Yep.
I think Ben Scott played a great season as well. The rest of the guys that were out there, I mean, Newelly, he took a whole year off, and he had come back. And, he was away from the team for a full season, and he came back. And I didn't think he played bad. I didn't think he played great. He played about where he was when he was a sophomore. Mm-hmm. He's gone now. And the left side of the line was just injury after injury after injury. We never even really heard that Jenkins ended up going out and didn't play in the last game. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what. I never heard. But so we're second and third string left guard and second and third string left tackle for the last 4 games of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I thought the development on the offensive line and the development that they showed all over the defense was fantastic. That's my big good is just the development in them being able to at least identify skill sets on the defensive side of the ball.
Jed?
My good is, I'm going to go generic. My good is October. Because
that's fair.
I mean, it was
that's good too.
For the first time in a long time. Number one, we had a 3-game winning streak, but also we strung together good football.
Yeah.
For an entire month. You can literally say an entire month.
Yep.
I don't care that there was only 3 games in that month, whatever. So other than obviously I love that you brought up the offensive line. That was kind of close to what other than the obvious of the defense. I kind of just wanted to give the offensive line some credit.
It almost didn't need to be said, but that was clearly the best part of the season.
Generically, I would say my good is October.
Yeah. My bad would have to be everything that we saw on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to identifying skills from a quarterback perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What they did with that quarterback room. It's bad. My ugly is going to be the injuries, just because
the turnovers.
Well, no, my ugly is going to be the injuries because I think the injuries played a lot bigger factor.
You can say turnovers.
Yeah, I feel like the injuries didn't get enough talk and weren't given enough weight in the conversation about how bad this offense was.
I don't know, dude. Every team has injuries.
Every team has injuries, but
some injuries knock you out of the playoffs.
Yep.
I digress.
Every team isn't playing.
That's why we're not in the playoffs.
We're not in the playoffs.
That's it. We nailed it. Assholes. No, most teams are not down to their second, third, or fourth string players at 7 or 8 positions.
Well, and also some of those teams they can afford to lose those because they have talent.
Yep.
When you're a patchwork,
I think Rhule is starting to fix that too.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. When you're a patchwork program at this point, first year, new head coach, didn't get to bring, he didn't come in and Deion Sanders did. He did not flush it and bring in all of his own guys.
Yep.
So he's dealing with guys with hangover injuries.
Except he did bring in like 60-something guys.
He didn't bring a bunch of guys.
Brought in a lot.
But
yes.
he also is a guy who wants to develop and he wants to preserve as much of that red shirt and as much of that, hey, sit back and watch how it's done before we try and bring you out here, the old school mentality developing players. And so that's why I specifically point to what they did with the quarterback room as being my bad, because they missed. They whiffed bad. And I'm not trying to go to those people that keep bitching about Casey Thompson and what if. I think if Casey Thompson was still here, he would have struggled this year with turnovers.
Yes.
Just as bad, but not for the same reason. More so because of the fact that our offensive line is like on average 8 inches taller than him, and he couldn't see the middle of the field.
And who would he have to throw to?
At two? I mean, there were guys getting opening games that if he was putting the ball out there, we would have scored some more touchdowns.
Maybe.
There were some, he had good connections with Trey Palmer last year because he was simply chucking the ball up, and Trey was fast enough to get behind him and get out there and do it. We had guys to do that. We just didn't have a quarterback to throw the ball.
Yeah. No,
so,
I agree. My bad is the quarterbacks. Yes, they did a bad job coaching them. In fact, I'd say the quarterbacks regressed throughout the season, all of them, including the third string. But
I don't know that you could say Chuba would rest.
I'd say
he literally only played he did play a little bit
2.5
Colorado
games,
game, but yeah.
He looked worse towards the end of the Iowa game than he did at the beginning of the Wisconsin game.
You're right.
That's fair.
So
is that a product of the fact that they didn't have any tape on him?
Could be. I mean, it definitely
We've talked
doesn't.
about that before, where a lot of backup quarterbacks in the NFL, they look great for their first start.
Well, we
But
talked about
second
it
start,
going
they
into the
look like
Iowa
ass.
game. We said Iowa's going to have a full game of tape on him.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and shit on him because obviously he was still the better quarterback of three. But
He still looked like a quarterback.
if you look at how Harburg played towards the beginning of the season, towards the end of the season, he looked considerably worse. Not only in his decision-making skills, but also he just didn't look like the same player running-wise.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the bad, and the ugly, it has to be the turnovers, just as a team.
Yep.
Being awful. I mean, special teams turnovers, quarterbacks obviously turning the ball over, inopportune turnovers from the running backs. Like
Something I was going to point to, though, was the fact that you remove the quarterbacks and you look at
we don't have a bad season.
You
turnover-wise.
remove the quarterbacks' turnovers, and the turnovers from the running backs and the wide receivers, that stuff got better throughout the year.
Mhm.
It absolutely
If you
did.
look at the change in the style of turnovers for the last 4 games of the season, we went from not throwing that many picks and everything was fumble to we were holding on to the ball pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden we were throwing it to dudes that didn't have red and white on a lot.
Mhm.
We
Except for the
led
Wisconsin game,
the
obviously.
country in turnovers.
Yeah.
That was ugly.
By far. Yeah.
What do you got for yours?
My bad and ugly can be very interchangeable. One of them is exactly what you guys brought up, because I could literally make an argument that this one is bad and ugly, and this one over here is also bad and ugly. So I'll just name the two, and you guys can figure out which one's bad and which one's ugly. Quarterbacks, obviously. All of them, top to bottom, left to right, whichever way they were. That's one of the two. The other one, since I went with October being the good, I'm going to go with November. Because there were times that it was ugly, and it was also really bad.
Yeah.
So, like I said, if I'm going to go generic and say good for October, November was not.
If you're gonna throw out just games for being the ugly or the bad, I think you almost have to like tack on the first 2 weeks to November, because it seemed like the same style ball.
Mhm.
Yep.
Like we were up, we were doing this. I mean, throw the Michigan game out. Like we said, they never even showed up to that game.
Mhm.
That's a different story. But everything else in the middle of the season felt really good.
Yep.
The first 2 games and the last 4, just didn't. It felt more like last year type ball.
Yeah. Do you guys have a single player that you thought was disappointing more than anything else this year?
That was disappointing. I mean,
Like you had high hopes for him.
let's not say any of the quarterbacks.
I'm obviously not going to talk
I'm gonna-
quarterbacks.
No,
I'm gonna
because
move
we've
away
already
from the
talked
quarterbacks.
quarterbacks. So
I was even going to say
That-
moving away from the quarterbacks, Billy Kemp.
That was exactly who I wanted to.
Billy Kemp, I really expected him to come not be a Trey Palmer type, but more of a Samari Toure type, where he's smaller. He should have gotten a lot more looks across the middle.
I expected his utilization to be way higher than it was.
They waited until the last 2 games of the season to get him so many touches.
To play somewhat of a devil's advocate, just asking questions, how much of that do you put on the quarterback play, though?
You got to put some of it on there.
Definitely some of it. But, I mean, we talked a lot about how Harburg was only accurate within 5 yards. That's where Billy Kemp should have been
where he lives.
supreme.
It's where he eats.
And
he was.
You said it multiple times.
He could not get himself open in a lot of games.
There was zero. Like he was quick when he had the ball, but he did not receive the ball well.
Yeah. I honestly don't know if there was a player that I can look at and just go, yeah, I'm very disappointed. I mean, that is not me saying I was pleased with all of the play, but I don't know I don't think my expectations were that high anyway. So it's kind of like I wasn't thinking about somebody being like an all-star type player in either way. I don't really know that anybody off the top of I mean, maybe I could say Alvano,
just going to say, because the other 2 that I would mention are Buschini and Alvano.
Because one of the things that we asked in one of our preseason shows was, who is the newcomer that you think needs to be the best? Like that, and I know I said Alvano because we need a kicker. We need a reliable kicker.
The thing is, we had a reasonably reliable kicker last year.
Yeah.
And he was still on the roster. Why he didn't get more of an opportunity when Alvano kept missing that stuff, I don't understand that.
So I guess, thinking and talking my way through it, I'd probably say Alvano.
Inversely, is there anybody who overachieved?
Give us yours.
I did.
He
Billy
did.
Kemp.
Yeah. Okay.
He agreed with you.
Yeah.
He was like,
okay. I was asking that because of Billy Kemp.
Yeah.
I was incredibly high on him this year, and I did not meet my expectations. Inversely, anybody on the team that just way overshot the bucket and you guys were super impressed with this year?
I will take this probably away from you and say Bryce Benhart.
That's not where I was going with it, actually.
I mean, and I'm saying that, granted, maybe there's some other guys that might be higher on the list, but a guy that has been shit on so much, not just by us.
Specifically by us.
You're right. A lot.
But honestly, everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody
you're
shit
no
on Bryce
longer
Benhart.
A big bitch, Bryce Benhart.
So
well, he's still a big bitch.
the way that he played this
way.
year, you brought up the offensive line earlier about how much better they were than a lot of people were expecting. I think
then a lot of people give them credit for
that too. But I think in asking that question, I think he deserves to be shouted out. So I'll go with Bryce Benhart on that question.
He was honorable mention Big Ten, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Him and Ben Scott.
I didn't look at the offensive.
Him and Ben Scott.
Honestly, when the offensive team came out, I didn't even bother looking at it because Nebraska didn't belong to be on it. So
him and Ben Scott were honorable mention, I believe.
Okay.
What about you?
For me, honestly, I have to go with probably 2 to 3 guys, and I can't really pick any of the 3 of them.
That means he's definitely going to pick one of the guys I had in mind.
It's
fine.
I'm going defensive line because I think Hutmaker for sure. He was a dude that I'm going to be dead honest. I didn't know his fucking name before the season started. I didn't think I knew he was a big guy. I knew he was probably going to be playing in the rotation, but to be as dominant as he wound up being all season long.
Yeah.
And by the end of the year, every announcer we're in games against Wisconsin and Iowa, and they're talking about how we have the most dominant interior defensive line guys in the Big Ten.
All 3 of us were so high on Ty Robinson coming into the season, we kind of just overlooked him.
Not necessarily.
We didn't overlook him. He also, you have to remember, he didn't start even playing or practicing until the 3rd week of fall camp.
In our preseason show, we brought up both Hutmaker and Robinson and said they need to be the guys that we recruited them to be. I mean, Robinson was playing.
We said that, but we really honed in on Ty Robinson as being the most important player.
At least for me, I expected.
Robinson was playing a lot last year. I mean, he was one of our main guys, but he wasn't like the 4-star guy that we recruited out of Arizona. We needed him to be that guy because, I mean, we all know I was terrified of the depth of the defensive line, and obviously they shot through the moon.
Yeah.
And in part of that defensive line being better than what I was scared of is Ty Robinson being the guy that we needed him to be, and he was that and then some.
He was that and then some, and he was overshadowed by Hutmacher.
At times, I think
towards the end of the year, Ty Robinson really
really got his name out there,
games especially.
Yeah,
He was really pushing. Like, I think that if he wanted to, he would be a 6th, 7th round type.
It was almost like
draft selection this year.
When one of them was and I don't even want to say a bad game, but bad comparatively speaking, it was Ty Robinson that was shining, and then Ty Robinson might not shine, and then Hutmacher shining. Yeah. It was literally a give and take there.
Yeah.
I thought they were both playing. I don't know that either one of them outshined the other one.
The other two that I was going to mention on the defensive line are just our true freshmen, Lenhart and Princeville. Those guys both.
Who? Say it.
Who? Your mommy yelling.
Yes. They both, I mean, to come in and play by the end of the season, they were important. It was important that they were in the game.
Yeah.
They were game-changing players by the end of the season, by the end of their true freshman season. You don't see that in high-end defenses anywhere in the country that often.
Yeah.
And that's freaking awesome that we get to see that. And it's only going to speak to, hey, look what you can do. Hey, big recruits. We pulled in Grant Bricks this week. That's a huge get for our offensive line. And it's you can point to what they did with Lenhart and Princeville and just simply say, hey, look, just because you're an incoming true freshman doesn't mean you're not going to get an opportunity, and we're going to let you play if you win that opportunity.
Well, and not just that on defense. You can go on offense. Malachi Coleman, and granted, some of this might have been because of the injuries on wide receivers.
Those guys didn't get where they got because of injury.
You're right. But like a guy, for instance, a guy like Jalen Lloyd, this is only the second year that he's ever played football. And
I didn't know that.
He's in there as a true freshman, catching 50-yard bombs, one of only 2 players to catch 3 or more 50-yard passes with a guy that maybe people have heard of, Marvin Harrison Jr. So, like, this is a guy
he'll be sitting in New York for the Heisman.
Yeah. This is a guy that is a true freshman and getting on the field. Again, maybe he only got on the field because of injuries, but he got out there and he shined.
Yes.
So, you can play if you're good enough in the system, and Rhule will put you out there.
Well, there's some offensive linemen that are coming in this year. I'll bet we get to see them play a little bit.
But the thing is,
we got some good dudes that have been sitting back waiting.
There's also a good chunk of them are coming back. So it's like trying to squeeze them in there somewhere. I'm not going to say it's going to be hard, but it's not going to be a shoo-in that they're going to play.
You're not going to get to see Teddy Prohaska put as many question marks on Matt Rhule's face next year and continue to start.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see him have to grow up real quick.
And is Bricks a tackle?
Bricks is a tackle.
Okay.
Bricks is
I thought he was. I knew that he was big. I just didn't know the exact numbers. I thought he was a tackle, but I wasn't 100% sure.
And by the way, fuck Iowa. We stole your number 1 recruit in state.
Okay. Is that Bricks?
Yeah.
I didn't know where he was from.
Yeah, he's a top 100 player.
Okay.
Yeah, huge. That was a big get. You look at what we're bringing in on the offensive line next year. It's more exciting than the year that we got Ben. If you remember, that was a good offensive line.
No, that was.
This is bigger. This is bigger than that.
Okay.
You guys have anything else for this season recap, or can we say
did you want
fuck
to go?
off?
Did you want to go through the preseason questions real quick?
Oh yes. Tell us you want it, Jed.
Defensive questions: opponent third down conversion percentage. I had it 38%. That was really close. The under hit at 36.6%. Everybody but me had that one. Luke Reimer tackles 96.5, trying to get him to the number 2 all-time tackles list. Didn't come close.
Not even close. Jesus.
Not really by any fault of him, but the way
Injury
it was.
didn't help.
Yeah,
we were playing, and the fact that he missed 3 games?
Yeah, something
2.5,
like that.
something like that.
He only had 48. Everybody took the over on that one because nobody thought that we'd have 100 guys get like 7 tackles.
Not even close.
Defensive takeaways, 19.5. The under on that one, we had 14. I was the only one who took the under on that one. Players with double-digit tackles for loss, 1.5. We had 0.
What? For real?
We had a lot of guys that were close.
Do you know who the tackles for loss leader was?
I would have to imagine Lenhart.
No.
No?
Jamari Butler at 8.5.
Oh, okay.
Which was kind of weird. Like, I know that he had a really good season, but I don't know that I heard his name on a consistent basis. You heard of Lenhart, Princeville, Robinson, Hutmacher, any of the linebackers,
Which they all had their share of tackles for loss too.
Yeah, he had 8.5 tackles for loss.
So
Nash had 8, so he was second, but I was the only one to take the under on that one. Defensive sacks, 25.5. They had 32, a lot more than that. You brought up a 2-1 shot bet for that one against me on them getting over 30. I took that bet, so I owe you 2 shots. Everybody but me took the over on that one, so I lost that one.
Well, you didn't have near the faith in our defense that, like, I didn't have.
There were a lot of question marks.
I just wasn't sure about the transition.
I didn't have faith that we were going to be like top tier defense.
Exactly.
Good, but I thought we were going to be better.
I thought we'd be better. I didn't think that we'd be what we were. Yes. Pass plays of 20-plus yards allowed at 34.5. We only allowed 25. We had you brought up a double or nothing shot bet on this one, that we would be under 30. And I thought that we'd go under 34.5. I did not think we'd go under 30, so I denied that one. So I still owe you the 2 shots. I did win that one by taking the under. Me and the fans did, but I didn't win the shot bet. Punt returns of 10-plus yards, 6.5. Yeah, that's not close, considering our longest was 8 yards.
Matt, that happened in the last game.
No, it was early in the season.
I thought we had
like a combined total of 8 yards.
Maybe that's what.
Matt, you were the only one to take the under on that one. The offensive questions, also the last one was field goals of 40-plus yards, 4.5. You guys thought it was way too low of a number. We only had 3. I was the only one who took the under on that one. Offensive questions, who will lead the team in rushing yards? Everybody took a running back, but Heinrich Harburg led the team with only 477, which is sad.
Yeah.
Billy Kemp receptions, speaking of sad.
I think, though, in our preseason preview, like, we weren't thinking about Heinrich Harburg at all.
No. Well, also, if Irvin and Grant wasn't injured, but if Irvin doesn't get injured, he's probably leading the team in rushing yards.
Yeah.
So, Billy Kemp receptions, 69.5, way under half of that, basically, at 35. BJ, you were the only one who took the under.
And he got 9 of those in the last game.
Who will lead the team in receiving yards? We had IGC, Billy Kemp, Xavier Betts, because we recorded that show like 3 weeks before the season started. Marcus Washington, a tight end or other. 3 of those guys were out with injuries early or left. Matt and the fans were the only ones that took Kemp. Touchdowns by fullbacks, because everybody was drooling that the fullback's back. They only had 1, so the under. Us 3 were the only ones that took the under. Of course, the fans took the over.
Shocked.
Because fullbacks. What position group will have the most touchdowns? Running backs, wide receivers, or tight ends? It ended up being a tie between running backs and wide receivers. So nobody got that one. And Nebraska points per game, really fucking sad. 30 points was the number. We had 18.
Well, if you remember, when we were doing that show, we all thought, the offense is going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Defense is going to be a question mark. We're going to have to score a lot of points in order to make up for this defense that we don't think we have much of a defensive line.
Boy, were we
We
wrong.
were so far fucking wrong on that, it's not even funny.
Yep. So the final standings going into, after the Iowa game, I was up by 1. And I ended up winning by 3.
Show off.
I had 48, you had 45, Matt had 44, and the fans had 39.
Wow.
So you beat Matt by 1.
Nice.
And I think I remember at the beginning of the year, you're like,
loser.
I'm calling it now. I'm winning. I'm cleaning up on these picks.
I did. I did. I think I opened a show like that. I think I did. No, it wasn't a bad season. It wasn't a good season.
It was
I'm excited.
exactly what most of us thought it would be, just not how we thought it was.
And that's the biggest thing. Like everybody that's like, this season sucked. It's just like all the other ones. Disappointed. Like, okay, what were your expectations going into the season?
11-1.
Yeah. And also, and I'll add another question to that. How did your expectations change after we started 0-2? Because I guarantee you, we were as far as the end of the season, most of you guys thought that the expectations were pretty much what they were. What they ended up being. After we started 0-2, a lot of those people were like, fire Rhule now, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, you know what?
Oh, yeah. And those retards went away until, like, basically the end of the Wisconsin.
Exactly.
Game. Then they crept back out.
Yep.
But is what it is. It was a season.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.